Welcome to the Milk and Cookies podcast. This is the super amazing podcast that's absolutely everything to do with American football and absolutely nothing to do with milk and cookies. My name is Alex, as always. I'm joined today with Anthony. Leon is unfortunately not here with us today, but he will be back soon. This episode is episode 6 of our weekly podcast, our weekly series, and we're just pure free agency. As most of you guys know, as long as you've been watching football and keeping up, free agency started about almost a week ago, give or take a couple days. Possibly the second biggest week of the offseason other than the draft, which I think the draft is much bigger, but depending on your team, cap space, whatever. So we are just going to discuss everything: free agents, winners, losers, individuals that won, individuals that lost, everything. So let's just get right into it. We're going to just start discussing teams that won free agency, teams that definitely got what they needed the most, and they just display that they're looking like they're going to do a better season than last year. Like, for instance, the first team, and I hate to say it as with all of my heart, the number one team that I think that won free agency is the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots have spent a buttload of money. They got Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry. They got Nelson Aguilar. They got former Dolphin Devon Godshot. I mean, they loaded up their entire roster with key players that are definitely going to be huge impacts. Does that make them instant contenders? No, I still see them finishing third behind the Bills and the Dolphins in the race, but they've certainly made themselves look better to maybe get a winning season this time around. Anthony, what do you think?
Following on what you said with the Patriots, I believe that the Patriots, sadly, hate to say it, won free agency with all their signings. But there's two teams that are under the radar that I think are the sleeper teams of this free agency. Now, you might not agree with me. I don't care. My two teams are the Arizona Cardinals and the New York Giants.
All right,
The Giants.
I get the Cardinals one sort of, but the Giants one. Well, no, I'm sorry. I get the Giants. I don't understand the Cardinals, but please explain.
All right. So with the Arizona Cardinals, you get J.J. Watt, you got A.J. Green, you have DeAndre Hopkins already on the team. You also have Kyler Murray, you have Larry Fitzgerald, and that offense right there is one of the offenses that's on the upcoming and rise of possibly being a better team than last year when they finished 7-9 or 8-8. I don't remember their record to be
Eight and
exact.
eight.
8-8. Thank
Yeah,
you, Alex.
you're welcome.
But I think this team has what it takes to get that momentum and go up to be either 10-6, 11-5, 12-4, maybe even make a deep playoff run with these key free agent signings. And then leading on to the Giants, they just signed Kyle Rudolph from the Minnesota Vikings. They have Kenny Golladay, they have Saquon Barkley, and they have Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. And you got a third-year quarterback in Daniel Jones, who this is the prove-it year for him. Is he going to be good and lead the team to maybe 12-4, 10-6, 11-5? Or is he going to have a bad year like he had these past two seasons and have a losing record or be a up and down roller coaster? You never know, but I think those free agent signings, if you stay healthy, they're going to be good teams this year that are going to be competitor teams.
I'll give you credit on this one. The Giants one I understand because they did get Galladay and their offense looks to be better, especially with Rudolph, and they're kind of shifting away from Evan Ingram. Arizona, I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding. AJ Green, despite him being wide receiver for number one for the Bengals for such a long time, is known for being full of injuries. He is injury prone. J.J. Watt, and I said this once, I'll say it again. I think the contract is definitely overpriced, and I do not think
Oh
he's
yeah,
worth that much money.
I
2 years,
agree that it's overpriced. I still think it's a good signing, even though
yeah, no, 2 years, 31
even
million for a 31-year-old edge rusher who's known for being injured. Also, didn't Fitzgerald retire?
no, Larry Fitzgerald's still playing.
I swear I thought he retired.
He's like 37, 38. He's still
I
playing.
I swear he retired the other earlier in the season. But anyway, I don't know about the Cardinals offense. I mean, we know what it's like to see a team that is overpowered. Similar to what the Browns did back in 2018 when they got Odell and Jarvis. And everybody's like, oh, 12-4, and they underperformed. Same thing with Arizona. The second they got D-Hop over last year's offseason, everybody's like, oh, instant playoff bound. They finished 8-8 and just missed the playoffs, and they allowed the Bears to get in. The Chicago Bears took their spot. The Bears. But anyway, I mean, you never know with how these teams play out. I see the Giants. I don't see the Cardinals. But let's transition into teams that lost free agency. And don't worry, Bears fans, you are included in this list. You guys completely lost free agency. I do not understand it. You guys signed Andy Dalton to be your quarterback, which no disrespect to Andy Dalton, but you could have traded for Watson. You could have traded for even Wilson, because you guys are notorious for losing your first-round picks to trading.
They offered to trade for Wilson, but Seattle turned it down.
Oh, yeah. Seattle's not going to get rid of their lead quarterback. Houston, on the other hand, was probably the most best case to get rid of him to the Bears. But they ended up signing Andy Dalton to be their starting quarterback. And also, you're keeping the one wide receiver on your team that can do something on a franchise tag, which he doesn't want to stay on your team. Allen Robinson wants nothing to do with the Bears. He wants out. Let him hit free agency. Let him enjoy whatever left of his career. But no, you guys franchise tagged him. Wasting money. He's gonna sit out. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
But Bears lost for sure. Anthony, what do you got?
I'm agreeing with you on the Bears. Andy Dalton, out of all the quarterbacks you could have had, hate to say it, you could have traded for Wilson, could have traded for Watson. You could have even traded or signed Jameis Winston. Hate to say it. Because even though Jameis Winston re-signed with the New Orleans Saints on a 1-year deal, he's still going to be the backup to Taysom Hill. But I still believe the Bears, they didn't really do much this offseason. They just signed Andy Dalton and kept Allen Robinson on the franchise tag, and agreeing with Alex and using his words. He doesn't want to be there. Why wouldn't you let him test waters or test free agency? You never know what he could have got.
Because they realize that the rest of their wide receiver core isn't worth anything.
I mean, you look ahead into the draft. This draft is filled with wide receivers.
Yeah, but they're not going to get an elite prospect unless they basically lose all their picks to get into the top 5, if anything, to get, any of the big name 3. But there's still a lot of decent wide receivers around their projected pick. But they should have let Robinson go. They could have signed a better quarterback than Dalton. I understand he was cheaper, but you probably would have gotten Fitzpatrick for a little bit cheaper than $10 million, which would have been a little bit better.
Ryan Fitzpatrick could have been in Chicago.
It would have been a better choice, but he went to Washington. So now let's go into individuals that definitely won free agency. Players that signed a really good contract with a team that they know or at least feel is going to make them feel appreciated and is definitely going to have them a starter. For instance, like I said, Ryan Fitzpatrick for sure won free agency. He is 38, 39, moving in on his final few years of the NFL, and he still is managing to pump out $10 million from Washington to be their starting quarterback, even though it's a 1-year deal. 1 year, $10 million with almost all of it is guaranteed, I believe. So he could be sitting on the bench behind Taylor Heinicke for the entire season. He's still making $10 million a year. Another winner, I think, is Marvin Jones with the Jaguars. The Jaguars had one of the highest cap spaces in the entire NFL because of how, they've just kind of tanked everything. But signing a pretty good deal to be their number wide receiver 1, you give them him. You have Westbrook. You have Laviska Shenault. You have James Robinson. I mean, that's a stacked offensive core. Their line isn't awful at all. Their line is pretty decent. And then you get Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that's an offense that can definitely make waves. Another one is Kenny Golladay. Even though I want him to be a Dolphin, I still think the 4-year, $72 million deal is really good, and the Giants got their new wide receiver number 1. It allows more pressure to be alleviated off of Slayton, so he can be the wide receiver number 2. What about you? What do you got?
A player that's not talked about really much nowadays, and I know, Alex, you're going to be happy with this signing that just happened. Will Fuller to the Miami Dolphins. That is, when I saw that notification, I'm not a Dolphins fan. I'm a Bucks and Raider fan, but I'm happy that the Dolphins got wide receiver number 1 or 2. Is it going to be 1 or 2?
It'll be a fight. I know that, but
it's going to be I think that's a great signing for the Miami Dolphins team that's showing they can prove to be a playoff team. And you got Tua on his second year, which I still believe in Tua. I believe that he's this great quarterback. Don't sleep on him.
Hmm.
I think Will Fuller is a great signing in Miami. Now you don't have to worry about taking a wide receiver in the draft. You can focus on other positions that you need to fill, but you might still take a wide receiver in the later rounds with the third pick. You never know, but I believe that Will Fuller was an amazing sign for the Dolphins, and I think Patrick Peterson in Minnesota, that's another good signing
That is a good one.
because in Minnesota, their defense last year, it was it was up and down. It was a roller coaster. There were some games they would allow like little to no points, and then there were some games you'd allow a lot of points. And I think having Patrick Peterson be a starting corner there in Minnesota is going to be a great signing for Minnesota. It's going to bolster their defense, and it's amazing for the team.
I mean, yeah, the Vikings defense has always been one of the more better defenses, and last year they severely lacked in cornerback help.
Oh
So
yeah,
the Patrick Peterson is a very good signing. It was a very good signing by the Vikings. The let's go into the final part of this video, and that'll be people that lost free agency, not necessarily teams, but just players that lost free agency. I said this before earlier in the video. Allen Robinson lost free agency because not only did he get franchise tagged,
indeed.
he's not able to demand a release. He's going to sit there on the benches for one whole year, get paid whatever the franchise tag cost is, not play a single thing. You can argue that he won because he's getting paid just to do nothing, but a guy like him
Yeah.
wants to play. He wants to ring. He doesn't want to be with the Bears, so he lost because he's not able to go transfer into another team. Another player I think lost is Juju. Juju re-signed with the Steelers for a one-year deal because of the cap decrease. The cap will increase by almost $40 million next offseason, but Juju signing a one-year short-term deal with the Steelers, even though he's voiced his discomfort
Opinions.
and discontent and, yes, and opinions about the Steelers, I really thought he would have made a move to go out instead of just re-signing. Despite him having multiple offers to go somewhere else, he decided to stay in Pittsburgh. I don't know what was going through his mind, but you can't change people. I mean, hopefully he just dumps all that TikTok crap, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Anthony, wrap it up. What do you got?
Agreeing with you on the whole Juju signing. He's voiced his opinion saying he wants out of Pittsburgh. After he started 11-0 and then he finished the season 11-5, he voiced his opinion saying he wants out and he wants to make more money. And he had other teams offering him more money, more years on some other teams. You have the Eagles, you have the Chiefs, the Ravens. The Ravens were the team that offered him the most money, but on a 1-year deal at $9 million. And the Chiefs offered him 1 years for $8.5 million, I believe. And then the Eagles offered him a multi-year deal worth $8.5 million also. But you stay to re-sign with the team you don't want to be with. That just feels like it just feels like he's going back on his own words and saying that you don't want to be there anymore, and he doesn't know what he wants, or like he's staying with Pittsburgh now, and if he wants to stay with Pittsburgh and be wide receiver number one, he has to cut all that TikTok stuff that didn't fly with Mike Tomlin and it didn't fly with other teams, and that's what got them to start losing. Everything got in their head. But I think Juju lost this free agency.
He did. And the one other problem that I have with Juju that's just with his play style is during his
Arrogant.
well, that too, but during his rookie season when everybody thought that he was going to be the next great wide receiver because of how many stats he racked up in, the yards and the touchdowns and everything. You also have to remind that he was a wide receiver number 2 as a rookie, which
Yeah.
even though it was a pretty good thing to be a rookie at wide receiver number 2. But when you have any defense's best cornerback or cornerback and safety or whatever guarding Antonio Brown when he was still with the Steelers, of course Juju's going to be the most wide open wide receiver. Of course he's going to make 20-plus yard catches. Of course he's going to be out in the open. And then he gave the shot at wide receiver number 1, and he kind of underdeveloped. He undershot the bar, and he hasn't proved that he can be an effective wide receiver number 1. He's an effective WR2, but not a primary. He needs a better wide receiver to overshadow his play and to take off the heavy coverage so then he can start making plays. But hopefully he starts developing into a wide receiver that is worth more than $10 million.
Hopefully he matures.
That would also be a plus too. You know, he was mid-20s after all, so you'd hope so. But I think that'll wrap up this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched this far, leave a like, leave a comment. If you liked our content, subscribe. Look at our past videos or not. I can't control you. But yeah, let us know if there's any other series that we should start. Thank you again. And as always, we will be back very, very soon.